In the most ruthless corner of London high society, a duke walks into a secret auction where reputations are priced like diamonds. And there she is, the girl nobody wants, the one they laugh at, hidden behind a veil, called an ugly duckling. So tell me, why would Duke Dominic pay a fortune for the one everyone refused? What did he see? That the entire room was too arrogant to notice? And if she's truly powerless, why does she look at him like she's the one doing the choosing? Because when that veil finally falls, will he be shocked by her beauty? Or by the fact that she was never his to buy? If you love scandal, power, and a woman who refuses to kneel, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe for more addictive historical drama. Like this video if you're ready for the twist, and share it with a friend who lives for jaw-dropping reveals. Now, let's begin. London wore its richest cruelty at night. The fog rolled in from the river with the patience of something ancient, threading itself between gaslit streets and iron railings, slipping under carriage doors and into the hems of evening gowns. It carried the damp bite of stone and soot, and beneath it, faint, unmistakable, the sharp sweetness of waxed wood and hot candle tallow, drifting from the great houses where laughter was purchased by the bottle. Tonight, the laughter was different. It did not rise from music or flirtation. It rose from certainty, from a room full of people who believed the world had been arranged for them, like a table set with silver and inevitability. They gathered behind polished doors, tucked away from the respectable public eye, where reputations could be auctioned without ever using the word. A private salon, a velvet-lined secret. Men in tailored coats sat with the ease of predators at rest, their rings catching lamplight as they lifted glasses. Women watched from the edges, smiles precise as stitched lace, eyes measuring and merciless. The air was warm with perfume and old money, yet it held an undertow of cold, like a blade hidden beneath silk. Then she arrived, not announced with fanfare, not escorted by admirers. No fluttering chorus of envy followed her steps. She was simply present, as if she had walked out of the fog itself. Her dress was modest in cut, the fabric plain enough to invite disdain. Her gloves were clean, not extravagant, and a veil, thick, dark, deliberately opaque, covered her face from brow to mouth, turning her into a question no one cared to answer. A murmur traveled the room, sharp as snapped thread. Too humble, no name, surely a mistake. A man's chuckle, soft, satisfied, rippled near the fire. Another voice, louder, made sport of it. If she had anything worth seeing, she wouldn't hide it. The veil did not tremble. The girl did not flinch. She stood with her hands clasped, spine straight, as though the room belonged to her in some invisible way. And though no one could see her eyes, people felt them anyway, steady, unblinking, aimed like a challenge. That was when Duke Dominic entered. The room reacted before anyone spoke his name. Backs straightened, smiles hardened into obedience. Even the most arrogant men shifted, adjusting cuffs, setting down their glasses a touch too carefully. He carried no visible weapon, yet everything about him suggested consequence. Dark coat, impeccable lines, a stillness that made the air feel thinner. His gaze swept the salon with clinical indifference, pausing on faces as if weighing them, and finding them all wanting. When his eyes settled on the veiled girl, something changed. Not in his expression. His mask remained perfect, carved from ice and discipline. But the silence deepened, as though the room itself leaned closer. Because the Duke did not look away. He did not dismiss her. He studied her like a man reading a sealed letter by touch alone. The auctioneer cleared his throat, eager to turn tension into spectacle. "Shall we begin?" Bids rang out for the first names, light-hearted, competitive, rehearsed. Coins became compliments, promises became prices. But when the veiled girl's turn came, the room offered her nothing, not even pity. The silence returned, thicker now, heavy with the satisfaction of exclusion. A few men exchanged amused glances, pleased to share the same cruelty. Someone muttered, "Let her pass." Another laughed, "No one buys a shadow." The veiled girl lifted her chin, and Duke Dominic, who had not moved since entering, raised his hand. The auctioneer blinked, uncertain, then forced a smile. "Your Grace?" "For her." Dominic's voice was low, smooth, and absolute. "Yes." A single word, and the room froze. The auctioneer swallowed. "As per tradition," he said carefully, "the winning bidder may request the veil be removed. Here, before witnesses." Dominic's hand did not lower, and the veiled girl's voice, quiet as a match struck in darkness, slipped through the silence. "Be careful, Duke," she whispered. "Not every man survives what he thinks he wants." Silence in that salon was never empty. It had weight. It had teeth. It spread when the auctioneer spoke her number again, smoothing his tone as if politeness could disguise cruelty. The names before her had sparked quick, playful bids, men competing the way boys fought over trophies, laughing as they spent fortunes that meant nothing to them. But when the veiled girl stood alone in the center of their attention, the air cooled. Conversations died mid-breath. A few fans paused halfway to painted lips. Even the fire seemed to crackle more quietly, as though listening. "No one," the auctioneer tried, with a brittle brightness. "Not a single offer." A sound answered him, a low chuckle from a corner thick with cigar smoke and confidence. It was followed by another, and then another, until the laughter became a small wave, lapping at the edges of the girl's stillness, testing whether it could make her flinch. A baron with watery eyes leaned toward his companion. "Perhaps she's a charity case," he said, loud enough to be heard. "We could toss her a shilling and feel virtuous." A young heir, too pink-cheeked to no consequence, smirked behind his glass. "Or perhaps she's veiled because she frightens mirrors." The words landed like thrown stones. They expected her to shrink. They expected her to beg. The room had been trained to enjoy that part, the moment a person learned where they belonged. But the veiled girl did not move as if she belonged anywhere at all. She stood with her hands folded, fingers steady, not gripping, not trembling. The veil hid her mouth. Yet her posture spoke with a clarity that unsettled the braver fools. It said, "I am not afraid of you." It said, "I have survived worse than your opinions." A woman near the settee, pearls tight around her throat, tilted her head, inspecting the girl like an item delivered late. "What a waste of everyone's time," she murmured, and others nodded, relieved to have permission to dismiss her. The auctioneer cleared his throat again, sweat gathering along his hairline. The longer the silence lasted, the more it exposed what this room truly was. Not refined, not civilized, just hungry and careful about how it chewed. "Very well," he began, forced to move on, forced to spare them the discomfort of their own ugliness. That was when the veiled girl spoke. Her voice was calm, neither sweet nor pleading. It cut through laughter the way cold water cuts through wine. "You're all so certain," she said softly, "that what you can't claim must be worthless." The Baron blinked, offended by the idea that she had the right to speak at all. She continued, unhurried. "You call it taste. You call it tradition. But it's only fear wearing perfume." A ripple of irritation ran through the room, quick as a match catching. Men shifted, women stiffened. Not because her words were vulgar, because they were accurate. "And you," she added, turning her veiled face toward the rows of wealthy hands that had lifted for everyone else. "You don't hesitate because I'm ugly." The salon held its breath. "You hesitate," she finished, "because you suspect you couldn't control me." For a heartbeat, no one laughed. No one breathed. Even those who despised her felt the smallest, shameful sting of being seen. Then, from the edge of that frozen moment, Duke Dominic's presence pressed forward like an approaching storm. He had not spoken. He had not smiled. He had watched the room and found it predictable, until her voice proved it wasn't. The auctioneer's gaze flicked to him, pleading for rescue or ruin. Dominic lifted his hand again, slow enough to make it deliberate, inevitable enough to make it terrifying. "I will bid," he said. A murmur broke loose, startled, disbelieving, and in the space between that murmur and the next breath, the veiled girl turned her head toward him, just slightly, like a blade acknowledging the hand that dared to take it. The first number Duke Dominic offered did not sound like money. It sounded like a verdict. A sharp intake of breath traveled the room, followed by the delicate clink of glass as someone's fingers betrayed them. The auctioneer repeated the bid as if testing whether his own tongue could survive it. Men who had spent the evening tossing sovereigns like crumbs suddenly remembered the meaning of cost. Women who had smiled through cruelty tightened their lips, as though the Duke's interest had exposed an unpleasant truth about desire. It did not ask permission from propriety. A viscount with a face too handsome to be honest leaned forward, eager to turn the moment into sport. "Your Grace is generous," he called, laughter threaded with insult, or perhaps sentimental. Dominic did not look at him. His attention remained fixed on the veiled girl as if the rest of the room had been reduced to furniture, ornate, polished, irrelevant. The silence around him was not polite, it was enforced. "Any counter?" the auctioneer asked, voice strained, eyes darting like a man watching a lion decide whether to kill. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Lord Ashford stirred. He was not a duke, but he carried himself like a man who believed he deserved to be. His smile was easy, practiced, and faintly cruel, an expression designed to reassure everyone that he was in control, even when he wasn't. He lifted his hand with theatrical laziness. "I'll add," Ashford said, naming a sum that would have been impressive in any other room. It landed with a soft thud, like a pebble tossed at a fortress. A few men chuckled, relieved to see someone challenge the Duke, as if it restored balance to a world that had tilted too sharply. Ashford's gaze slid toward the veiled girl, lingering with the confidence of entitlement. One cannot let such curiosities go untested. The veiled girl did not turn toward him. She turned toward Dominic instead, slow and deliberate, and the shift felt like a choice, like a door closing. Dominic's mouth did not curve, his eyes did not soften, yet something in him sharpened. An edge revealed beneath the velvet of restraint. "Twice," he said. The auctioneer nearly choked repeating it. The room erupted into whispers, scandal blooming like bruises. Ashford's smile faltered, then returned brighter, more brittle. "Well," Ashford said lightly, "if we are to burn money, let us burn it elegantly." He raised again, higher, a bid meant to sting, meant to prove that a duke could be bled. Dominic did not bleed. He lifted his hand once more, not hurried, not angry, simply certain. The number he offered was obscene, not merely a fortune, but a declaration that fortune itself was his to insult. A hush collapsed over the salon. Even the most arrogant men sat still, watching as though witnessing a law of nature. Ashford's face tightened at the corners. His eyes flashed with something less refined than amusement. Pride, hunger, fear. The auctioneer swallowed, then forced the words out. "Going once." Ashford hesitated. He wanted to continue. He wanted the victory badly enough to taste it. But his gaze flicked to the room, and he measured the cost of humiliation. Not money, reputation. The kind of loss that followed a man into every drawing room and made him smaller. He lowered his hand. The auctioneer's voice shook as the final words fell. "Sold." The sound of the gavel was crisp, final, and strangely intimate, like the closing of a lock. Dominic stepped forward. The air around him smelled faintly of winter and expensive leather, of control maintained at any price. He stopped close enough that the veiled girl could feel his presence without him touching her. "By tradition," the auctioneer announced, eager to anchor the chaos to etiquette. The winner may request the unveiling, here, before witnesses. Dominic's gaze held steady on the veil. And beneath it, the girl's voice slipped out again, soft as a threat dressed in silk. "Ask for it," she murmured, "and discover what your fortune truly bought." The room had the peculiar stillness of a held breath, the kind that made every small sound feel like confession. Somewhere, a silk sleeve whispered against velvet. A ring tapped once against crystal. The candles burned with a patient, steady hunger, and the air, rich with perfume and warm wax, seemed to thin as Duke Dominic stepped closer. He did not touch her at first. He simply stood within the circle of attention, and that alone changed the temperature of the salon. Men who had laughed moments ago found their throats tight. Women who had sharpened their smiles into knives suddenly remembered the value of restraint. The Duke's power was not loud. It was the quiet certainty that he could end a man with a sentence and never raise his voice. "Unveil," someone murmured from the crowd, too eager, too cruel. The auctioneer cleared his throat. "Your Grace has the right." Dominic lifted 2 fingers, and the man fell silent mid-word. His gaze remained on the veil, unblinking, as though he could see through fabric, through rumor, through whatever story the room had invented to keep her small. The veiled girl stood just as still. Her chin stayed high, her shoulders unbowed. If she felt fear, she wore it like jewelry, private, controlled, and chosen. Dominic's voice came at last, low and even. "Remove it." A command, a challenge, an invitation. The girl's hands rose, not hurried, not trembling. Her gloved fingers found the fastening with a precision that suggested practice. The gesture was careful enough to feel ceremonial, as if she were unwrapping a truth rather than cloth. For a moment, the room could hear nothing but the faint rasp of fabric, the soft friction of silk against lace. Then the veil began to slip. It moved like a shadow surrendering to light, sliding away from the lines of her face. The first glimpse was not of beauty, but of calm, an expression so composed it felt almost insolent. Her mouth was set with quiet certainty, not softness. Her skin caught candlelight like pale satin, unmarked by panic. When the last fold fell, it was not a reveal so much as a rebuke, because she was not the ugly duckling they had mocked. She was the kind of beauty that unsettled, the kind that made people angry at their own hunger. High cheekbones, eyes too clear to be harmless, dark and sharp with intelligence, a gaze that did not ask to be approved of. It simply existed, commanding space like a storm that had learned manners. The salon broke in silence first, then in sound. A woman made a faint noise that could have been awe or envy. A man laughed once, too loudly, as if laughter could hide desire. Another whispered, "Impossible," like a prayer and an accusation braided together. Heads turned, calculations began. Regret arrived quickly, greedy and sour. Dominic did not move, but the mask of ice, perfect for so long, showed a fracture so small only the closest eye would catch it. His pupils widened, his breath changed. For the briefest heartbeat, he looked like a man who had won something he had not expected to want so badly. Her eyes met his and held. No gratitude, no pleading, only a measured, feral kind of calm, as if she were assessing him the way one assesses a locked door, deciding whether to pick it, break it, or walk away. She leaned in just enough that her words would belong only to him. "You thought you bought a secret," she murmured. "But tell me, Duke, did you just purchase a woman?" Her voice softened into something sharper than steel. "Or did you purchase a war?" The applause that followed her unveiling was not admiration. It was appetite dressed as manners. Names began to bloom in the air like heat. Titles, estates, alliances, each whispered with the greed of people who had dismissed her a moment too early. Compliments came sharp and belated, offered the way a gambler offers praise to a card he suddenly fears. Men leaned forward, as if proximity could correct their mistake. Women smiled with the brittle sweetness reserved for rivals they could not afford to underestimate. Dominic did not allow the room to close around her. He moved with a calm that made every path open before him. No raised voice, no threat spoken aloud, yet bodies shifted aside as if obeying a law older than etiquette. His hand offered neither tenderness nor possession, only direction, an exit drawn in the air. Ivy took it because she chose to, not because she belonged to anyone. Her fingers were cool through her glove, her grip steady, the pressure of her touch more like agreement than surrender. Outside, the night tasted of wet stone and coal smoke. The fog clung to everything, curling against skin, carrying the faint metallic bite of rain. Inside the carriage, the air changed. Leather, polished wood, and something sharper. Dominic's control, held so tightly it almost smelled like iron. He spoke first, measured. "You will stay under my roof. You will be protected from their speculation." Ivy's laughter was quiet, and it did not soften her face. "Protected," she repeated, as though tasting the word and finding it too convenient. "Is that what you call it, when a man pays a fortune and then decides where a woman sleeps?" Dominic's jaw tightened once. The smallest betrayal of feeling. "I call it preventing vultures from tearing you apart." "I am not carrion," Ivy said, and there was no tremor in it, only truth. "And they cannot tear what refuses to be held down." The carriage rolled onward, a steady rhythm beneath the tension. Dominic watched her, the way a man watches a flame he cannot decide to extinguish or worship. "You made a spectacle of them," he said. "I held up a mirror," she replied. "They just hated what they saw." He leaned back, as if distance might restore the order she disrupted. "There will be terms." "Of course," Ivy said, and her voice turned almost amused. "Men like you cannot breathe without contracts." Dominic's eyes narrowed. "You will not leave without an escort." "And you will not give me one you can use as a leash," Ivy countered, seamless and immediate. "I will come and go. I will refuse what I dislike. I will speak when I choose. And if your roof comes with silent obedience, then you bought the wrong woman." A pause stretched between them, taut as a drawn ribbon. Dominic's composure held, but something underneath shifted, an unfamiliar strain against the mask. "You are bold," he said at last, softly. "I am alive," Ivy answered. "Bold is what men call it when a woman won't die quietly." The carriage slowed. The gates opened. Beyond them, Dominic's estate rose out of the mist, dark and immense, smelling of cold stone and old authority. Servants appeared like shadows trained to move without being noticed. But Ivy noticed everything. The hush, the discipline, the way the household seemed to inhale when Dominic returned and exhale only after he passed. A footman approached with a silver tray. On it lay a letter, freshly delivered, the seal unbroken, black wax stamped with a mark that did not belong to Dominic's house. The servant's voice was carefully neutral. "For your grace." It was insisted, urgently. Dominic took it without looking away from Ivy. She looked at the seal, then at him, and the corner of her mouth lifted in a smile that wasn't warm. "Someone knows," she murmured. Dominic's thumb hovered over the wax. "Knows what?" Ivy's gaze sharpened, dark and fearless. "Who I am," she said, "or why you really chose me." The wax cracked under Dominic's pressure, and as the letter unfolded, the night seemed to grow colder around them. The letter smelled faintly of smoke, as if it had been warmed over a secret before being sealed. Dominic read in silence, the paper held with a steadiness that should have promised calm. But Ivy watched the muscles at his jaw tighten, watched the minute pause in his breathing, as if the words had pressed a cold thumb against something private. He folded the page once, then again. Neat, controlled, dangerous. "What does it say?" Ivy asked. Dominic's eyes lifted to hers, and for a moment his gaze was not ice, but flint, hard, bright, and struck into life by pressure. "It says," he replied, voice low, "that my house has invited a viper into its heart." Ivy's smile did not falter. How poetic. "It names you," Dominic continued, and the calmness of his tone only sharpened the threat beneath it. "Not Ivy, another name, a name the world believes buried." The corridors around them seemed to deepen, the air cooling with every step they took into the house's quiet. Footfalls were swallowed by thick carpets. Candlelight made gold out of shadows. Servants moved like trained ghosts, eyes lowered, as if the walls themselves had taught them what not to see. Ivy walked beside Dominic without shrinking into his protection. If anything, she looked sharper here, surrounded by wealth that wanted to claim her. "So someone recognized me," she said. "Or they recognized the idea of me." Dominic stopped, turning so abruptly the candlelight caught his profile like a blade. "You planned this," he said softly. "The veil, the auction. You chose a room full of predators." "I chose a room full of predators because it's the only place men reveal their true teeth," Ivy answered. Her voice remained steady, but there was steel in it now, an old steel, worn smooth by survival. "And I chose you because you are the only predator in that room who doesn't pretend he's civilized." A silence stretched between them, tense, intimate, dangerous. Dominic's hand tightened around the folded letter. "This is not a game," he said. "No," Ivy replied. "It's a reckoning." 2 days later, London pretended nothing had happened. That was how the city survived its own sins, by dressing them in new silk and calling them tradition. A gathering was announced, respectable on the surface, inevitable beneath. Tea, conversation, the polite theatre of refined cruelty. Ivy entered Dominic's world as if she had been born to it, not because she bent to it, but because she refused to be intimidated by it. She wore simplicity like a challenge. Her gaze did not soften when titles were spoken. She did not lower her eyes when women measured her. She simply stood there, breathing the air of expensive flowers and hidden resentment, and made the room feel suddenly smaller. Then Lord Ashford approached. His voice was smooth, warmed by charm and sharpened by malice. "Miss Ivy," he said, as though her name belonged on his tongue. "How extraordinary! London is full of surprises." Ivy's eyes narrowed a fraction. "So are snakes," she replied. Ashford laughed lightly, the sound of a man who had never feared consequences. "I do hope you won't insult me in the Duke's house. It would force him into unpleasant choices." Dominic's presence tightened beside her, like a door locking. "Say what you came to say," he murmured. Ashford's smile widened, and his gaze slid to Ivy with the confidence of entitlement. "Only this," he said softly. "Some veils hide beauty, others hide crimes, and I have always been fascinated by what women bury." Ivy leaned closer, close enough to make his bravado hesitate. "Be careful, Lord Ashford," she whispered. "Not every grave stays closed." Ashford's eyes flashed. Then he recovered, lowering his voice until it turned intimate. "I remember a portrait," he said. "A girl with your eyes. A family that fell very suddenly. A name that was inconvenient. Imagine how shocked London would be to learn where you truly belong." A pulse of cold moved through Ivy's chest. Not fear, recognition. Dominic's tone turned lethal. "If you have proof, you'll bring it to me." Ashford's smile sharpened. "Oh, I will, but not privately. What fun is a secret if it cannot be used?" That night, long after the house quieted into candle-warm hush, Ivy moved through Dominic's halls as if listening to the bones of the place. She followed instinct more than maps, drawn by something she could not name, until she found a door that resisted and a key that yielded too easily. Inside, The scent of old paper and varnished frames rose like a memory. And there, half hidden behind draped cloth, was a portrait of a young woman who looked painfully familiar. Same cut of cheek, same defiant mouth, same eyes that refused surrender. Only the name beneath was not Ivy. Footsteps sounded behind her. Dominic's voice, quiet as a threat, filled the room. "Tell me," he said, "did I buy you because I wanted you, or because I recognized you?" The portrait's eyes followed Ivy like an old accusation. Dominic stood behind her, silent as stone, yet the air around him felt charged. Winter held in a man's chest. Ivy did not turn immediately. She kept her gaze on the painted face, on the familiar curve of cheek and the stubborn line of mouth, on the name engraved beneath in elegant script like a verdict written by a steady hand. "That girl is dead," Dominic said at last, not cruelly, not kindly, simply as fact. Ivy's gloved fingers brushed the edge of the frame. "Dead girls don't keep looking back," she murmured. "They don't haunt corridors. They don't attract black-sealed letters." Dominic moved closer. "Answer me." Ivy finally turned, slow and deliberate, as if she refused to be dragged into confession. Candlelight caught her features and sharpened them. Beauty, yes, but the kind that did not invite ownership. Her eyes lifted to his without apology. "You didn't recognize me," she said. "Not truly. You recognized a pattern, a mystery, a threat to the room's boredom." Dominic's gaze narrowed. "That is not an answer." "No," Ivy agreed, voice calm. "It's a correction." She walked past him, not away, through him, as if his authority was something she could step over. Dominic did not reach for her. He watched, controlled, but his control carried strain now, like a tightly wound clock beginning to protest. "I wore the veil because they only understand what they can rank," Ivy said. "Hide a face and they assume it is ugly. Hide a name and they assume it is nothing. They needed to believe I was small." Dominic's tone hardened. "And you needed to be in that auction." "I needed to enter a room where men forget they're being watched," Ivy replied. "A room where arrogance makes them careless." He held the folded letter between two fingers. "Someone is not careless. Someone knows enough to threaten my house." Ivy's expression did not soften. It sharpened. "Good," she said. "Then they finally stepped into the light." Dominic's jaw flexed, a crack in the marble. "You speak as if you want this." "I want the truth," Ivy answered. "I want the person who buried that name to learn that graves are not cages." Silence stretched, heavy with the scent of old varnish and candle smoke. Dominic's eyes searched her face, not for beauty now, but for the line where bravery ended and foolishness began. If he found it, he didn't name it. "What was taken from you?" he asked, quieter. Ivy's smile was brief and razor-thin. "Everything that makes people treat you like a person instead of an opportunity." Dominic took a step closer, and for a moment his voice lost its polished chill. "Then tell me what you are hunting. Tell me who." Ivy met his gaze, unblinking. "If I say it aloud, it becomes a weapon you can use without understanding the cut," she said. "And men like you are taught that power is the same as right." A flicker, something like hurt, quickly smothered, passed through Dominic's eyes. "You think I would use you?" "I think you're capable of anything when you decide something is yours," Ivy replied. "And I am not yours." Dominic exhaled once, controlled, but it sounded like restraint forced into shape. "Then what are you?" Ivy's voice dropped, intimate and steady. "A woman who learned that monsters wear titles." Dominic's gaze held hers. The room felt smaller, the portrait watching, listening. Finally he spoke, softer than command, sharper than plea. "You are under my roof." Ivy leaned in just enough for her words to land like a vow. "Then let your roof learn what it means to shelter a storm." From somewhere beyond the corridor, A faint disturbance moved through the house. Hurried steps. A servant's breath caught too fast. A knock came, restrained but urgent, followed by a voice forced into calm. "Your Grace," the servant called. "Lord Ashford has sent word. He will be attending the next ball, and he claims he will bring proof." Ivy's eyes did not widen. They darkened, as if a door inside her had opened. "Let him," she said. "Public lies are easier to kill." The ball arrived like a polished threat. London's grand houses pretended their chandeliers were stars and their manners were morals. But Ivy could taste the truth beneath the sweetness. Sugar laid over rot. The air was heavy with crushed roses and expensive powder, with the faint, warm breath of crowded bodies wrapped in silk. Laughter skimmed along the walls, bright and thin, while every glance carried a private calculation. Ivy entered beside Dominic and felt the room shift, not because she sought attention, because attention sought her. Heads turned with synchronized hunger. Those who had dismissed her at the auction now looked as if they had always admired her. Men straightened their shoulders. Women adjusted their smiles into something sharp and rehearsed. And through it all, Ivy's expression remained composed, almost bored, as though the room were merely weather. Dominic moved with her like a shadow that chose to be seen. He spoke little. He needed no words. His presence made space open and close at will. A silent command that kept hands from reaching too close, mouths from speaking too freely. Yet Ivy noticed the tension in him, the way his stillness had become a restraint rather than a natural state. His mask of ice held, but it held like glass under pressure. Then Ashford appeared. He did not announce himself. He simply arrived at the edge of Ivy's senses, like an old bruise returning. His smile was effortless, his eyes bright with the satisfaction of a man who believed he had already won. He approached as if the crowd were a curtain that parted for him, as if the evening belonged to his amusement. "Miss Ivy," he said, voice warm enough to sound kind. "You look remarkably comfortable for someone with so many unanswered questions." Ivy tilted her head slightly, her gaze calm and cutting. "Questions only frighten liars," she replied. "Are you frightened, Lord Ashford?" A faint ripple of laughter moved nearby, quickly swallowed by the room's nervousness. Ashford's smile tightened, then softened again, polished into charm. Dominic stepped forward, voice low. "You said you had proof." "I do," Ashford answered, and the pleasure in his tone was almost intimate. "But I thought it best to share it with the proper audience. London adores a revelation." He lifted a hand, and a servant, too tense to be innocent, appeared with a slim portfolio sealed by ribbon. Ashford untied it slowly, savouring the quiet that fell as people leaned in, pretending they weren't hungry. "A document," Ashford said. "Old, authentic. It links our dazzling newcomer to a fallen family and a very inconvenient scandal." Whispers erupted like sparks. A lady pressed her fan to her lips, eyes wide with delighted horror. A gentleman murmured a name Ivy did not repeat, because speaking it would give it power. Dominic's voice turned colder. "This is blackmail." "This is society," Ashford replied, and his gaze slid back to Ivy. "Tell them, my dear. Tell them why you hid. Tell them what you are." Ivy stepped forward before Dominic could move again, placing herself where every gaze could strike. Her posture was straight, unshaken. She looked across the room as if she were the judge and they were the ones on trial. "You want a story," she said softly. "Something you can sip with your tea tomorrow." The room stilled, caught by the calm in her voice. "You think a document makes truth," Ivy continued, her eyes bright with controlled fury. "But papers are easily forged when men with clean gloves want a woman erased." Ashford's smile remained, until Ivy turned her gaze on him fully. "And you," she said, gentle as a knife. "You didn't bring proof. You brought a performance, because you believe humiliation is the same as justice." A hush fell, thick and trembling. Ashford leaned closer, his voice dropping. "Careful," he murmured. "One word from me, and you're ruined." Ivy's mouth curved slightly. "Then speak," she whispered back. "And ruin yourself with it." Ashford's eyes flashed, and he lifted the document higher, as if raising a blade. "Very well," he announced. "Since you refuse confession, I'll give London the name you buried." And Ivy watched him, perfectly still, as though she had been waiting for him to say it first. The moment Ashford prepared to speak the buried name, the room seemed to contract around a single hunger. People leaned forward without meaning to, fans stilled mid-sway. The very air felt thicker, sweet with perfume, and sharpened by anticipation. This was what London worshipped more faithfully than God. Ruin served elegantly. Disgrace poured into crystal and swallowed with a smile. Ashford's voice carried the smooth confidence of a man who had never been told no by anything that mattered. "She is not who she claims," he declared, letting the words hover like incense. "She is..." "Stop!" The word did not come from Dominic. It came from Ivy, soft, unraised. Yet it struck the room like a slap. Ashford blinked, irritation flashing through his charm. "You're in no position to..." "I said stop," Ivy repeated, and the calm in her tone was worse than anger. Anger begged for reaction. Calm promised consequence. If you give them a name, you give them something they think they can own. And I won't be owned by the mouths of strangers. A ripple of discontent ran through the crowd. They wanted the name the way children wanted blood from a scraped knee. Proof of harm, proof of power. Ashford's smile widened, predatory and pleased. "How dramatic," he said. "How theatrical. But you cannot silence me." Dominic took one step forward, then slow enough to be deliberate. His presence moved like a blade sliding free. The room felt it. Even those who adored scandal suddenly remembered fear. "You will leave," Dominic said, voice low and lethal, "before you disgrace yourself further." Ashford's eyes gleamed. "Disgrace? You mean defend her? How tender, how foolish." He angled the document in his hand, as if it were scripture. "Or perhaps you're afraid, Your Grace. Afraid London will learn you paid a fortune for a fraud." Dominic's jaw tightened, the smallest crack in his marble control. He had ended men with less provocation, destroyed families with a signature. But this was different. His gaze flicked, once, only once, to Ivy, as if seeking permission he was not accustomed to asking. Ivy did not give it. She lifted her chin and looked directly at Ashford. "You're enjoying this," she said quietly. "Not because you care about truth, but because you want to watch me bleed in public." Ashford's mouth curved. Public is where reputations die. It's efficient. Ivy stepped closer to him, not reckless, precise. The scent of crushed roses clung to her like an accusation, but her eyes were winter clear. "Then speak," she murmured, almost gently. "Say the name, and listen to how quickly your triumph turns sour." For the first time, a sliver of uncertainty passed behind Ashford's gaze, as if he sensed a trap but could not locate its teeth. He recovered by leaning into arrogance. "Very well," he said, raising his voice for the room. "She is..." A sharp crack cut through the music. Someone dropped a glass, startled by the sudden movement of Dominic's hand. He had taken the document, not ripped it, not flung it, simply removed it from Ashford's grasp with the quiet certainty of a man taking back what never belonged to the other. Ashford's smile vanished. "You can't..." Dominic held the paper between two fingers and looked at Ashford as if he were something unpleasant on a boot. "I can," he said. Ivy's gaze did not soften at Dominic's intervention. If anything, it hardened with a different kind of tension, something intimate and dangerous, the line between gratitude and fury. "Don't," she said to Dominic, voice low enough to be only for him. Don't save me the way men save women. Save me the way men save themselves, by ending what threatens them. Dominic's eyes darkened. His mask of ice did not melt, it splintered, just enough to reveal heat beneath. If I end him, he murmured, they'll come for you harder. Let them, Ivy whispered. I didn't come to London to be safe. Ashford, now openly angry, lifted his chin and spat his final weapon into the room. If you won't let me speak her name, he snapped, then I will speak her crime. There is a file, an official record, waiting to be opened at dawn. The crowd inhaled as one, and Ivy, indomitable, unflinching, turned her face toward the windows where the night pressed its fog against the glass, as if she could already hear morning footsteps coming to claim her. Dawn did not arrive like hope, it arrived like a summons. The fog thinned into a pale, reluctant light, leaving London washed in cold grey, as if the city had been rinsed of last night's perfume and left only its bones. Within Dominic's house, the air tasted of sleeplessness, spent candle smoke, ink, and the faint iron tang of restraint held too tightly. Ivy did not pace. She did not tremble. She sat with her spine straight and her hands folded, as though waiting for the world to finally admit what it had done. The threat Ashford had thrown into the room still hung in the air. An official file, a record, a name tied to a crime, a noose made of paper. Dominic stood at the window, motionless, watching the morning as if he could force it to change its mind. When he spoke, his voice was controlled, but something raw pressed beneath it. If you go, he said quietly, they will not question you. They will display you. Ivy's eyes lifted, sharp and steady. Then I'll stand where they want me to kneel. Dominic turned. For once, the coldness in his face looked less like superiority and more like a man refusing to break. You are not walking into their hands alone. You don't understand, Ivy replied. If you shield me, they'll say I'm guilty and protected. If you threaten them, they'll call it proof. I don't threaten, Dominic said, and the words carried the smooth edge of a blade. I finish. Ivy rose, closing the distance between them without asking permission. Then finish the right thing, she murmured. Not the man, the lie. A knock came, measured, unavoidable. The messenger's voice followed, too polite for the violence of its message. Your Grace, the carriage from the magistrate's office has arrived. Dominic's gaze locked on Ivy's face, and the fracture in his mask widened for a heartbeat. Not weakness, truth. Tell me what you are hiding, he said softly. Not for them, for me. Ivy's breath caught so slightly it might have been imagined. Then she leaned closer, and her voice lowered into something that sounded like a confession and a dare braided together. They killed my name, she whispered. They didn't do it with a knife. They did it with ink, a forged record, a stolen inheritance, a story written so neatly that society preferred it to the messy truth. Dominic's eyes darkened. Ashford. Not only him, Ivy said. Men like him, families like his. They needed someone to blame, someone to erase, so they could keep their hands clean. The carriage waited like a throat clearing outside a door. Dominic reached into his coat and withdrew a sealed packet, its edges crisp, its weight certain. Then we go armed, he said. Ivy looked at the seal and felt something cold settle into place. Not fear, focus. That won't be enough. It will, Dominic replied, because it isn't a plea. It's a blade. They stepped into the morning, and London pretended to wake innocently, as if it hadn't spent the night sharpening itself. The magistrate's chambers smelled of damp wool and old books, of authority that had been handled by too many unworthy hands. Clerks watched with hungry curiosity. Men with clean collars stared as if they could already see Ivy's ruin. Ashford was there, of course, smiling like a man attending a performance he had funded. How admirable, he murmured. The Duke brings her himself. Ivy met his gaze and smiled back. small and merciless. "I wanted you close," she said, "so you can hear the moment your story dies." The magistrate began to speak of records and accusations, of files prepared and names recorded. Ashford's confidence grew with every formal word, his arrogance swelling as if law itself were his ally. Then Dominic laid his packet on the table. The sound was quiet. The silence it created was not. Ashford's smile faltered as the seal was broken. Ivy watched, calm as winter, as the magistrate's eyes moved across lines of ink that did not flatter Ashford's version of reality. A long pause, a swallow, a glance that shifted from Ivy to Ashford with something like dawning disgust. "What is this?" Ashford demanded, too quickly. Ivy's voice cut in, smooth as satin and just as suffocating. "It's the part you didn't expect," she said. "The witness you couldn't buy, the signature you couldn't forge." Ashford's charm cracked, revealing panic beneath. This is absurd." The magistrate lifted a hand, and for the first time, Ashford looked smaller than his title. Ivy stepped closer to the table, eyes bright, unblinking. "Say my name now," she murmured. "Say it while they're listening." Ashford's mouth opened, and in that opening, the world finally leaned toward truth.